Welcome to another episode of Utah Interfaith Forum. I'm your host, Stephen Pynakker, an evangelical Christian who's been engaging in interfaith work for a little over 3 years with my primary channel, Mormon Book Reviews. And now it's kind of evolved into this new channel that we're really excited about, the Utah Interfaith Forum. And we've talked to a lot of wonderful people, and I'm really excited about this new venture. And I'm really excited about my co-host, Monica Bambrough. Welcome back. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, thanks. I
So,
love that you say my last name. I don't think it's ever gonna change. It's got your
it,
little accent in there.
this Midwest accent, it's so hard. And of course my last name's Pynakker, and I've just grown accustomed to people butchering that name, so I just move on. But
No,
thanks for your
I
patience.
love it.
So yeah, we're just I got to know Kyle today, Kyle Reyes, who's recently actually has a book coming out, and we're going to talk about the book. But Kyle's actually he's actually a stake president in Provo, Utah, and you are attached to Utah Valley University. What do you do at UVU?
Yeah, so thanks for having me on. It's great to be here. I'm the Vice President of Institutional Advancement at UVU, and I've been in that role for about 20 months. And that's essentially a fancy way to say a Vice President of the division that goes out and tries to raise money for the university over alumni relations, those types of things, community relations. So it's been an absolute pleasure to tell the story of UVU as we've grown.
That's great. And I just love the campus. I went there last year for the first time. I saw those wonderful stained glass
Yep.
windows that are in there. What's the name of that display they have in
Called
there?
the Roots of Knowledge Gallery, and it really is just a tremendous artistic feat of stained glass, telling kind of artist depictions of the history of knowledge, the history of learning, history of education.
Monica, have you seen those? Have you seen that the stained glass windows in there?
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
really is
And
remarkable. Yeah,
there's so
folks.
many little Easter eggs in
yeah,
there that I
it's
don't know that
true.
you would ever find.
Yeah.
All of them. It's
Yeah, if you ever,
beautiful.
folks, if you ever find yourself out by the UVU campus, go to the library and check out the beautiful display they have there. It's really awesome. It's very inspiring and just absolutely beautiful. So okay, well, I'm very interested because apparently, Kyle, you've been doing interfaith work for quite a while, and it kind of ties into your new book that's coming out. So I just thought maybe give us a little background on yourself
Yeah.
and some of your interfaith projects you've been working on.
Happy to do so. And it really goes back to childhood. I mean, I'll just start there because this is a very personal thing for me. This is not just a professional matter. I grew up in a home where my father was Catholic, my mother a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, LDS, in Southern California. So as you know, I come from a mixed racial background. My mother Hawaiian Japanese. She went to the Church College of Hawaii. She went to BYU. My father educated in the Philippines, again, raised to be a Catholic priest. And so in my home, you know, you had going to church with mom and going to mass with dad. You had multiple languages. You had various, you know, obviously our ethnic origins. And so there was always this idea of what it means to navigate kind of and find out who we are, right? For my siblings and myself. And we were always kind of in this space in between. And so I think that's where it started. Once I started doing work at Utah Valley University, I've been working here for almost 21 years. And in so many of the positions I've held and the great work I've been able to be a part of, about trying to empower students from all backgrounds to really find, you know, educational opportunity here. I came across students from so many, you know, faith affinity groups and religious backgrounds and worldviews and ideologies. And as I interacted with them, I started to realize, you know, there is much to learn from one another in just engagement and what, you know, interfaith engagement could look like. Fast forward to UVSC, Utah Valley State College, turning into Utah Valley University, and we hired a gentleman by the name of Matt Holland. And what Matt brought was, you know, he and his father, both prominent LDS leaders, studied various, you know, his father, Jeff Holland, studied theology. Matt studied civic charity and the American founding. And so when I was hired into his office, we just started talking a great deal about what our hopes were for what Utah Valley University would become, at this place authentically where people could bring their full identities, their worldviews, and find a place here. So we engaged with a gentleman by the name of Eboo Patel. And Eboo, at the time, had just released his second book. He is a Muslim organizer out of Chicago who brought together people and started what's called the Interfaith Youth Corps, IFYC, out of Chicago. And so we brought Eboo to campus, and we developed what we now have at UVU called the Reflection Center. And this was a 4-year project. You can imagine when we build a new student union building and we want to create a space for interreligious engagement, there is so much nuance that goes into developing a space like that, because you're saying, well, whose religious views do you privilege when you build a space? Do you have the space set up for a large, gathering, or is it by gender, depending on the religious worship? Do you have it facing a certain direction? Do you have light coming in at a certain angle? Do you have water features? What decor do you put up when you're trying to have this be an ecumenical reflection center to really recognize and value people of all faiths and belief systems? And it took us 4 years. And then when we finally cut the ribbon on that space, Eboo Patel from Chicago flew out, and we launched our Interfaith Youth Student Council. We also engaged with the Interfaith group in Utah County. At the time, we worked with Linda Walton, a chaplain, a local chaplain here. Alexis Palmer, our Dean of Students, headed up the interfaith work at the university. And from that moment on, I got more engaged with the National Interfaith Youth Corps movement out of Chicago. I flew to Chicago for a little while and was able to help develop a curriculum for higher education staff all throughout the United States on how we can engage in more rich conversations around spiritual identity. And so that I'll just stop there. There's more, but I'll just stop there. It gives you a flavor of what I've been involved in, because as the senior diversity officer at UVU, the very first chief diversity officer we ever had at the university, I actually implemented interfaith work in our diversity trainings and workshops. And it was the first in the state of Utah to implement spiritual identity in the diversity trainings. Often religious and faith identity is not included in the larger diversity conversation. It's usually centered on race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, and it hasn't focused so much on religious or spiritual identity. And so we integrated that, and we were called out in a good, positive way for having done so. So that's just a flavor of some of the things I've been involved in. Very exciting.
Yeah, it's really interesting because a lot of people talk about the religious makeup of BYU and also the U. What is the religious makeup generally of the campus at UVU?
Yeah. So the last time we had the official IFYC survey, they do this for universities all throughout the United States. The last one we did was right before COVID. And so we did every 2 years, we had done a interfaith survey of faculty, staff, and students. So the last one, the data is from 2020, and it indicated that about of our students at that time, about 76% self-identified as members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, but with varying levels of devoutness or activity. And so the next highest was in that survey were a sort of a lumping together of people from various faiths, various smaller faiths, or people that said they're non-believers or they're secular humanist or atheist that had been on that survey. And so again, as of 2020, that was the composition of our student as self-reported in terms of various levels of devoutness and activity within the LDS Church.
Interesting. So it's really interesting because, of course, when we talk about interfaith, it can be a challenge. We live in a very divided society right now, and you brought up COVID, and really, COVID was kind of like, it really exacerbated a lot of some of the issues in this country, and really started to see things kind of falling apart. Obviously, others. Oh, we lost our light there.
Sorry.
It's all good. This is.
Let me just turn this back on.
It's great, folks. This is how podcast. There we go. We got the light back on. It's great. Wonderful.
Sorry
Let
about
there be
that.
light.
It's how classrooms work when there's not a lot of movement. Okay.
Yeah, energy efficiency makes sense. So move around a little bit more, okay? So, but it was interesting because we were seeing a lot of divisiveness going on in our country, and of course we're heading into an election year. Maybe
Yeah.
talk about the importance that the important role that interfaith dialogue can have in trying to bring civility back to the conversation.
So it's such a great question because I believe that, well, let me back up. Interfaith and faith identity, our ideology, our worldview, how we have defined our sense of what is right, a moral compass. It is so deep to us. And yet when it comes to our casual conversations, we often avoid discussions, right? In the public eye, we often avoid discussions about religious belief systems, identities, and those things. And so anytime we engage in a conversation of difference, and I'm just talking about diversity broadly, just any different ways that we view the world, so often, and especially in political seasons, we feel like that in that engagement, somebody has to lose, right? It has to turn into a debate because we are in debate season. And anytime you're in debate season, it's in the ecosystem, it's in the environment that we show up ready for battle. When you show up for any engagement like that, then anybody that has a differing view, and especially a differing view that might cut against a moral view that you might hold, then all of a sudden it even takes it to a higher level of, then somebody really has to lose after this discussion. One of the key components that I would want everybody to know, whether it's one of the reasons why I wrote this book and in my day-to-day work is, if we can actually practice viewing other humans, other people, with a greater sense of compassion and empathy, and not approach every one of these engagements as this debate that needs to be won or lost, but that the goal can be to simply understand and simply, humanize their experience, there is so much positivity, there's so much great work, and we can build on so many areas where we actually have commonality. What rules the day, though, is not the 70% that we agree on. It's the 30% that we might passionately disagree on that actually takes over our relationship. And so in this divisive society, we live off of bumper sticker ideas. I could have nuanced thoughts. I can have a depth of a story to tell you, but you're only going to read the bumper sticker of my thoughts, and therefore you've already formulated your opinions about what I stand for. And it hinders our ability to lean in with authenticity and a sense of cultural humility to say, I actually believe, even if I might disagree with you at the end of the day about some issue, I actually believe I can learn from you. And I actually believe that there's some understanding I can gain from you. I think that skill is a skill that we are just not teaching well enough and not modeling well enough, and especially with social media exacerbating the bumper sticker engagements.
So I just wanted to ask you, I come from an evangelical background. Of course, evangelicals have tended to be some of the more vocal critics of your faith tradition. I was
Yeah.
just wondering, have you had any engagement with evangelicals with your interfaith work? And if so, what kind of how did they go?
Yeah, and again, it's just the answer to that to your question is as diverse as every person I've met, right? So I've had, as not only in just my interfaith work specifically, but as I go, and I'm a diversity consultant nationally, and so I've consulted with over 200 organizations just on strategic diversity planning and those things. Well, when they hear I'm from Utah, and I go to Chicago or New York or LA or someplace, and they're like, wait a minute, we're having a diversity guy come from Orem, Utah. They're like, well, this is backwards. What's going on there? Well, what could he possibly know? And then they're like, well, surely he can't be Mormon if he's consulting us on diversity work. And then they find out that I, in fact, am. And then they're like, okay, this just doesn't match up.
I
I don't
hope
know
you
how
tell them your life story, and then they're like, "Oh, totally get it now."
Right.
Your life story is so amazing.
Well, once they give me that space to tell that, but
Yeah.
their initial biases show up in their kind of shock. Then as we go through and we start talking through some of the actual beliefs, so when they ask, do you actually believe this, or do you, and we go through and I'm able to help them understand my beliefs, doctrinal beliefs, different things. And then I also reciprocate, though, to say, but help me understand your beliefs. And where do you agree or disagree with that? I think things with other people could possibly escalate, but my whole goal is that any engagement with me, that even if somebody brings fire and brimstone to me, when it comes to like their energy of trying to tell me why my religious beliefs might be wrong, I'm hoping that in the way that I engage back and respond to them with respect and civility and a genuine curiosity, that it actually takes down the temperature and they realize I'm not trying to battle them. I am actually trying to understand. It's opened a lot of doors for friendship and engagement. Now, have I observed some of my colleagues who are also diversity or who are also LDS who have engaged with evangelicals get into some pretty heavy debate? Yeah, I've seen that. And you can kind of see when it escalates into a, who's going to win this at the end of the day. And that's never been my approach. So I think my general approach has lent itself to people saying, treating me with a bit more respect, even if they fundamentally disagree with some of the things I believe.
It's funny because a lot of the biggest criticisms that are directed towards me typically come from the evangelical camp, because essentially they want I should have a ministry to convert Latter-day Saints, and if I'm not doing that, then I'm not doing the Lord's work in their mind. And my whole argument is that, first of all, I'm not here to convert anybody. I'm here
Right.
just to,
Right.
our view should not be trying to convert people. We should just live our faith and let people judge you from where you're at from that position. I just think it's stupid for us to go around. One of my good friends said we all need to exercise epistemological humility, and that's been one of the founding principles of what this is all about. Is that, once you think you know everything, you got it all figured out, and you're gonna let everybody know, it really does cause there to be barriers that are put up between people, and people don't even know how to talk to each other. They just talk past each other. And I'm so saddened by that, because I really do feel that a lot of that mindset has laid the groundwork for where this country is at today. It's kind of corrupted all the dialogue that's happening, unfortunately. And it just grieves my heart. So I really feel like, in one sense, the Lord's hand is on this endeavor, because he wants us, his image bearers, to talk to each other rather than fight each other. What do you say to that, Kyle?
Oh, I completely agree with that. I mean, I think we could throw around the word ironic so many times, but I find it ironic that people, in the name of their belief system, belittle other belief systems, or in the name of their belief system, belittle other humans overall, or fundamentally can't see that whatever they espouse, whatever deity they espouse, that, and I'm talking about Mormons as well, right? Whatever deity we espouse, that somehow we are not practicing to actually look through, in this case, Christ-like lenses, right? Or some other more loving and compassionate lenses. And so it is, like you said, it's interesting when someone says the Lord's work, or whoever's work that they believe is guiding this, right? Whoever their deity might be, or higher power, that work could be one of two things, right? It could be getting consensus around a specific doctrine. That could be one person's interpretation of the Lord, which is leading to conversion and that kind of thing. Or the Lord's work might be actually becoming a person that that your deity would be proud of, meaning that you're becoming a person that actually lives the principles of your faith, of compassion, forgiveness, empathy, charity, those types of things, and which is the work that we're supposed to be about. And I agree with you. I see a reason why I wrote this book, the reason why I do what I do in education. I mean, people have asked me, do you feel called to be an educator? Isn't that an interesting question? You've been in higher ed for so long, Kyle, in 21 years, and at the same university. Not many people stay at the same place anymore for 21 years. What has kept you there? And I go, can I just be honest? Utah Valley University feels to me like the most authentically Christian, open, like one of the most authentically like open places for people to just come as you are, bring whatever you have. We'll add to that with some educational opportunities, but we're not closed admissions. We have no benchmark to get into the university. Just come and add to the richness of what we have here. And so when they've asked me like, hey, why have you stayed here? And I say, well, there's a part of me that actually feels a certain sense of calling to this profession, right? A certain sense of, I believe part of my responsibility here, or my calling here, is to use my talents to help bring about opportunities to dignify the human experience for other people. And for me, that's helping young people and not so young people. I've had students of mine that were 50, 60 years old, but help people to become authors of their own stories. And if I can help them do that, that's as much of the Lord's work as anything, So
I love it. I love it. That's great. So, Monica, I thought we should start talking about the book, but I was just wondering if you had any questions or follow up here from what we've been talking here.
I don't have any questions. I agree with all of it. I love it.
Well,
I approach it the same way as he does. I'm like, I'm not here for a fight. I want a friend. I want to understand you. I want to love you. I want to leave here loving you. Because I will run into them again someday, gratefully. And I hope our conversation can continue. Our friendships can deepen, that there is more understanding and compassion for understanding how they live and their life story. There's more to it than I believe XYZ. And differences do not bother me. I want to know. And here's an example. In my experience of doing the homeless experience, where I lived on the street for a night, just to understand that community, what happens, to kind of feel the beauty within it, the sadness, the hardships, all of it. I had an opportunity to walk with a woman that had been homeless for 2 decades. And it's just such a real moment, because she knew I was a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. She had some feelings toward that, and she came at me with those feelings, and I just listened. And I said, you know what? I cannot say I understand where you're coming from because I don't have that experience, but I can have empathy for you and feel for your experience. And then I just continued to listen. And as she kept talking, she just got softer and softer and connected and connected. And by the end of the night, she's like, and by the way, here's my phone number, call me. So that's what happens when you really just want to be connected to a person with a life experience, with feelings, thoughts, emotions that maybe you don't understand. There's beauty in that, in differences. Your mind is opened, your heart is opened. And so I'm completely on board with what Kyle's saying. And I think it's the best way to engage. There's no need for us to talk down to each other, to belittle other beliefs, even if we might say, wow, that does not comprehend in my mind. Right? It doesn't have to. You can still love them. So
yeah.
I love everything that Kyle is saying.
That's great. I love it. So Kyle, why don't we pull up the screen share here? Let's talk about your book that's coming out. And folks, we're gonna provide a link here so that you can do pre-orders of this book on Amazon and any other links you want to send me, Kyle. So the name of the book is called Lenses of Humanity: How Reflection, Connection, and Empathy Can Heal Our World. And Kyle, you had said that you felt like this book really is a reflection of a lot of the interfaith work that has kind of informed this book as well. So this is the book here, and so just talk a little bit about that, and then why don't you exit out of the screen share
Sure.
Here, but just
Sure.
tell us a little bit about this book.
Yeah, so this book was born from a number. Well, let me just say this: I've been engaged in this work of intercultural understanding and intercultural communication for 2 decades, right? When I was a professor, I would teach intercultural communication. In the School of Education, I taught multicultural understanding to teachers who were going to be our K-12 teachers, right? The elementary teachers, secondary teachers. I taught courses and things like that. And so this has been born out of a lot of my own research on what humans yearn for. And what I mean by that is humans, in my studies of other studies, as well as my own individual, original studies, building off of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and really trying to reframe that and seeing if I could find what humans yearn for fundamentally. I was able to distill it down to a number of words, coded the words to 3 categories of what humans like across ethnicities, across ages, what they fundamentally yearn for, what we yearn for. Safety and stability, connection and belonging, value and purpose, right? So those 3 things, safety, stability. And so all the words under that sense of like, do I feel safe? Is there a sense of like, security there? That is fundamental to what now, a 2-year-old may not be able to articulate that, but they want that. They yearn for that. Same with a 20-year-old going to their first job. Same with a 55-year-old coming back to Utah Valley University, taking their first class. They want to feel safe and stable there. Second, connection and belonging is so fundamental to the human yearning. And it shows up in so many different ways. And then finally, value and purpose. Does it matter that I was here? Does it matter that I'm part of this organization, this family, this unit, this school? Once those 3 things came out of my studies, I started to really analyze that from what can we do about it? How can we actually help other people? And so my thesis of the book is simply the idea that I believe that our humanity is found in our ability to help other people find those 3 things. So my humanity is my ability to help you both at some level find a sense of safety, stability, connection, belonging, value, and purpose in my engagements with you. Or as a leader of an organization, how am I doing that for my employees or for the community? The way I did that was through the development of these 4 lenses, because I thought I want to do something practical where it's not just in theory, but I want to provide a framework where people can actually tomorrow or today go and start to develop even better some of these lenses of humanity, these 4 lenses of humanity. The way where the interfaith work comes in on that is the shifting lenses metaphor is one that is born out of my own experience of getting glasses and then going back to the optometrist and getting LASIK surgery. And this idea that as I do snapshot views and my doctor telling me, Kyle, your eyes are always shifting. You don't even realize it. Your eyes are always shifting. That phrase, right? Your eyes are always shifting, had me research more. How has my worldview changed from 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago? I'm 45 years old now. The 15-year-old Kyle looked at the world so differently, right? Because of my relative youth, but also my limited lived experience, but also the teachings that I was receiving in my household around certain religious ideology, right? The 25-year-old Kyle then looked at the world very differently than the 15-year-old Kyle. And then you keep going in the 35-year-old Kyle. So for me, lenses as a metaphor is so appropriate because it's not about the fact that we ever arrive to some complete understanding of one's identity or one's worldview, because we are ever evolving, we are ever shifting. And every interaction we have, you shift my lens. Today, this conversation, without me even realizing it, well, now I'm more cognizant of it, but your very questions is signaling to me what you care about. And so it's starting to signal to me, this is telling me a little bit more about both of you. And so next time we engage outside of this podcast, when we just go grab lunch together, we already have something to build on, but our lenses has been shifted a little bit. That all stems from my work on interfaith, because every person, whether it was somebody who was Hindi, secular humanist, Sikh, Seventh-day Adventist, Muslim, somebody who came from a tradition that I had just learned about or didn't even know, every engagement shifted my lenses a little bit. And I think instead of us fearing that, I think that could be something very exciting for us to actually say, oh, I actually could develop lenses of humanity. Oh, and by the way, there are things I can do to do that. Oh, and by the way, it's an exciting thing for growth, not something to fear. So that's where some of this book has come from, especially being influenced by my interfaith work.
Interesting. And it's how big of a book is it? How many pages is it?
Yeah, so the latest draft I saw from my publisher is has it at about 190 pages, about 55,000 words. So I don't know if you want to call it standard, but it's pretty standard within your nonfiction genre. So yeah, to me it's a quick read though, because 13 chapters, 3 chapters on each of the 4 lenses, and then a concluding chapter. But the reason why I feel like it's a quick read, and my sample readers have said oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I'm going to walk with this now. My sample readers have said that it is more of a quick read, is because I really try to weave in a lot of personal stories to the text. I start every chapter with a very personal story. I talk about every aspect of my own navigation of identity, my own worldview. And so each concept is explored. Each lens is explored in 3 separate chapters of a what, so what, now what teaching model. A chapter of what is the concept of this inner lens? Why does it matter? The so what, and then what can you do about it? Now what? What can I go do today to develop the inner lens better?
Love it. Love it. Now, how much of this book is autobiographical? How much will we learn about Kyle in this book?
Oh, you'll probably learn too much about me. I put at the very beginning, I write in the intro that this is part public discourse, research endeavor, and memoir. I mean, it's my own journaling of I just felt like authentically, I couldn't talk about inviting people to vulnerably lean into developing new lenses of understanding across cultural lines if I don't model how my own messy journey in doing so. And so I call out the times when I took missteps and I didn't show up with as much humanity as I should have. And there are times where I because of somebody else who demonstrated more humanity than I did, I learned from them. And so, yeah, you're going to learn a lot about me, especially all the nerdy stuff. I talk about everything from my love of musicals to I worked in a comic book store, and I talk about how stories change in our minds as we grow and evolve, the stories we tell ourselves. We talk a lot about the brain. I do a whole chapter on how the brain works and how it frames our sense of human connection. And then I talk about lifting communities and what the word community means to different people. So a lot autobiographical.
And if you do read it, I love his story. And I'm not going to share it because I don't want to say anything you don't want me to say.
You're good.
But it's just, I love how it has been a total journey of transformation and change and growth and learning. And, you're 45, you didn't just happen upon your knowledge here. It was a lot of time, effort, struggle to get here. And I think that's important for people to see that, you know what, I might not be where I want to be right now, but I can totally work at it. I can get better at interfaith engagement. I can get better at all of the things that you discuss in this book. Like you said, I can take all these steps to get there.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, why don't you pull up the book one more time so people can see the cover? And folks, will have links in the description for those of you who'd like to do pre-orders. Will be coming out soon, and the release date is August 15th. Is that correct?
Yeah, the pre-order release date is that's when it can be ordered, and then they will start to ship in September.
Okay, so it's Lenses of Humanity, How Reflection, Connection, and Empathy Can Heal Our World by Kyle Reyes, PhD. Thank you so much for coming on the program to share this with us.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. Thanks for the questions and the engagement. I've loved the conversation. Thank you.
Yeah,
and so just yeah, this was great. This was a great conversation. I love it so much. And so real quick here, I just wanted to remind everybody that, of course, many of you might be watching this on the Mormon Book Reviews platform, but just a reminder that I do have a link here on my main page for the Utah Interfaith Forum channel. And so we are getting this thing started up. So I wanted to encourage you to also subscribe to the Utah Interfaith Forum channel. And also, if you're on Facebook, please join the Utah Interfaith Forum Facebook group which is actually where this channel was birthed from. So, but before we go there, before we end any episode, Monica has her questions that she asks every guest. So, Monica, ask away.
So, Kyle,
Yes.
we ask 2 questions at the end of our show. Number 1 is, what's your favorite thing about your religion?
Well, I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. As mentioned earlier, I currently serve in a capacity with a responsibility called stake president. What that essentially means, again, I'm assuming that not everybody that listens knows all the ins and outs of things. And so what that essentially means is that I have some stewardship responsibilities for a certain geographical set, boundary and a certain set of congregations. The reason why I share that is because the particular stake that I get to serve with is a very unique stake. It's 5 boundary wards, so 5 boundary units, congregations based on just streets and boundaries, and part of South Provo, the Franklin area of Provo. But then we have what we call 5 specialty units. We have 2 Spanish wards, a Haitian Creole congregation, a Native American congregation, and then we have an ASL, deaf and hard of hearing congregation. We will have these conferences where we'll bring everyone together, and we call that a stake conference, and we bring them together. And what I've just absolutely loved, and where I have felt just that my love for the people I get to serve with has increased. Call whatever number you want to call, 3-fold, 5-fold, 10-fold. Yeah. Authentically, my love has increased in these moments where we're exchanging across language, across income level, across experience, family structure. But a message that is prepared is being signed to our American Sign Language ward, and then being translated into Spanish and being translated into Haitian Creole. And to me, one of the things that I absolutely love is just at the core of it, and that's why I'm being very specific. Words matter. At the core of what I believe to be the core of the religion is to become like our Savior Jesus Christ. Then what I love is the opportunities to, across the world, across language, across cultures and communities, that we can simply invite people in their own cultural context to come unto the Savior Jesus Christ. I know we're not unique in that. I'm not claiming, I'm not claiming our uniqueness in that, but it's authentically what I absolutely love. It's what keeps me engaged. It's what keeps me wanting to serve. It's what keeps me wanting to invite my family to participate in bringing people to find healing and hope through Jesus Christ.
I love that. I love that you brought up who you serve in your stake, because that's one of the things I love when you told me that. That's just amazing, the difference. And I attended a Samoan ward a few weeks ago, and in the pews there's a Samoan hymn book, a Tongan hymn book, yep, an English hymn book, and a Spanish hymn book, yep, in one, yep, chapel, right? Yep. So whoever you are coming, you're served there, and I just thought it was beautiful. Now the second question is, what's your favorite thing about another religion?
Oh gosh, I have so many. I know. We need another hour just for me to answer these questions.
I know. Can we say I'm a little Baptist, I'm a little bit Methodist, I'm a little bit Evangelical, I'm a little.
Here's what I'll say. And again, I almost, because I have such dear friends when I grew up in Southern California, I went to a junior high where during my 7th grade year, I kid you not, I attended 21 bar mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs, and benai mitzvahs. Okay. We were all turning 12 and my whole school was Jewish. And so when I say navigating this interreligious world stems from my childhood, it really, I was going to I was going to these bar mitzvahs, Saturday morning, partying all day, and then going to church Sunday, and then going to mass. Anyway, so here's what I'll say. What I absolutely love, of what I've learned from so many of my friends that are Muslim, so many that are evangelical, Hindu. It's less about what the organized religion is preaching. What I mean by that is it's less about the religion that I love. It's more about the people that I've known who are just so sincerely trying within their faith, right? Within their belief system. I don't care like what that belief system is, but the fact that you're like trying and you're devout in some way, you're making an effort, you're demonstrating a level of faith to say, you know what, I'm sacrificing time that I could be doing something else to go do this thing. I'm going to go do service with my faith group, or I'm going to go on this mini mission over here, or I'm going to go and do a fundraiser to support people because that's what my church group is doing. I have my first cousin. His name is Dion Maeda. He's my mother's brother's son. He's a pastor. He's a pastor in the big island of Hawaii. He received his theological training to be a pastor in Boston. When we go to Hawaii, we visit his congregation, and it is just, we are singing and we are celebrating, and the music, and we're standing and dancing, and my kids will look over like, "Dad, this is different than church back at home." And I'm like, isn't it amazing? Like, this is awesome.
Great. Yeah.
And then I go and we break bread together and we hug and we love each other and we're cousins. And the fact that he's going and sacrificing time to go and clean up his own church there, and the fact that they go and together and go serve. To me, what I love is I love seeing people who really understand their own belief system, who really have dug in deep, whether it's their own set of scriptures, whether it's their own set of leadership. I love learning about that. And so again, I know it's a kind of a softball answer, but it's authentic. It's hard for me to choose one particular thing about another religion, because it's in the people.
Yes, I'm with you. It is hard. I'd have to think about that for a really long time. I'd probably come up with an answer like yours, like, oh, can I choose them all? I do love that. It's the religion in action that is beautiful, because I think no matter what religion or faith belief traditions that you have, it makes you a better person. It makes you better for your family. It makes you better for your community, which makes you better for the world. And so I think that whatever you're doing to commit time to and belief that makes you better, all good.
Yeah.
Thank you. Those are awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks. Well, thanks, Kyle, for coming on. Check out the book. We'll have links in the description for that. Order a copy. It sounds like a really interesting read. Glad you're able to come on the program to be able to promote it here on the Utah Interfaith Forum. Folks, leave your comments. We'd love to hear what your thoughts on this conversation was as well. And by the way, I'm wearing a BYU Idaho t-shirt, and I'm just wondering what's it going to take to get a UVU t-shirt sent?
Oh, I can make that. I can make that happen easily. I will make that happen. You just tell me the size on our side chat. You just tell me the size, and we'll get you something.
Sounds great. Yes, awesome. So I'll be sporting it on my program. So it's good public PR for your school. So it always helps everybody. I love it. So. Folks, talk about also too in the comments, maybe talk about some of the interfaith conversations that you've had, learning about other religions. Also, maybe let's have people answer Monica's questions in the comments as well. Talk about the favorite aspects of your religion and some things that you admire in other religions. I think these are great conversation starters. And and Monica, maybe we should even do something in the Utah Interfaith Forum where we can get that ball rolling too on our Facebook page, because I think it's really great to have those types of questions. Really makes people think. So thanks again, folks, for joining us. This is a place where it's interfaith in action. God bless and have a great day.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.